guys, welcome back to my channel. For today's video, we are going to be doing a self-tanner showdown. We have 7 different popular self-tanners here. I thought I would put them all to the test, and I am so excited to be finally filming this video because that means I am frickin' done with it. Obviously, I can only use one self-tanner a week, so that means this video has been in the making for 7 weeks. Actually, technically 9 weeks, because I also recently uploaded a Tanologist comparison between their self-tanner drops, mousse, and water. I'll put a card for that here and link it below. We're just going to be talking about their mousse in this video because that's the vibe for the rest of these products. So technically, I've been doing this for 9 frickin' weeks, filming myself applying these self-tanners, filming the after shots, and here we are so I can talk to you guys about all of these products. So you'll see the before and afters, you'll hear my thoughts on all of them, and I would say the top concerns when it comes to self-tanner. So aside from the color and how that actually develops on the skin, I will talk through the smell, how long it lasts, how easy it is to apply, and of course, you guys didn't think I was going to do this without talking through the ingredients. Yes, I looked up, oh gosh, they're gonna fall everywhere this whole video. I already know that. Let's collectively prepare for that. I looked up every single ingredient in every single one of these self-tanners to get an idea for which ones may be better for sensitive skin types than others. So if you wanna hear all of that, if you wanna see my before and afters and see which self-tanner wins, let's jump right into it. All right, let's just start right off with Loving Tan. Let's start with a bang. I know that this is a favorite for so many people. I specifically have their 2-Hour Express Deluxe Bronzing Mousse in the shade Dark. I don't even know if they have their original formula anymore in this shade. They might, the one that you're supposed to leave on for 8 hours, but this is just the one that I have always used, and I find that they're really comparable. I'll talk through how long I actually leave this on in a bit. This one is no cheap purchase. This is the priciest out of all of the self-tanners that I'm going to review here. It's $59.95 for this size. That is so expensive, you guys, especially now that I have tried so many other brands. This is significantly pricier than the rest, so wow. And I'm gonna rate each of these self-tanners by walking through those lists of common concerns that I was talking about in the introduction. So let's just start right off with ease of application. This one is very easy to apply. I apply all of my self-tanners with a self-tanner mitt that you see here. I will link below the mitt that I use. I've used quite a few and most are pretty good. So this one's really easy to apply. It has a very dark color guard, as you can see in this clip. And color guards have pros and cons. One of the pros of color guards is that it's easier for you to see where you're laying down that color so that you don't miss spots. So if you're a beginner with self-tanner, a color guard definitely makes it easier until you can get more comfortable with application. Very easy to apply. The mousse is nice and smooth. I don't have issues with, anything crazy as far as streaking or patchiness when I'm actually blending it in. So I would give ease of application a 5 out of 5. Next is, does this dry down fully after applying it? That's something that really irritates me when you just have that lasting stick for the entire time that you're letting that tanner develop. This does dry fully, so another 5 out of 5. Next, is this transfer free? So are you able to just throw clothes on after applying it and not have them get all over the place? Can you lay down on the couch comfortably and not worry about getting brown self-tanner smudges everywhere? This is not completely transfer free because of that intensely dark color guard. It does transfer onto clothes. You have to be careful. So I would give that like a 3 out of 5. It's not horrible, like it doesn't just get on everything, but it still is not completely transfer free. The next concern is the smell while developing. So I would break self-tanner smells into 2 different categories. The first is, while it's developing, does it have a distinct smell? The second is, once you've rinsed it off, do you have that kind of 24-hour, what I like to call self-tan BO? 2 different things. So yes, this does definitely have a smell while it's developing. It's not a horrible scent, but it's there and it's very apparent. So I would give that like a 2.5 out of 5. The smell is, it's there. And this also does have that 24-hour self-tan BO. The next day after I apply this, even though I shower and I use soap and water, shower gel, whatever you want to call it, to rinse everything off, I can just smell something that is not quite right, that's a little bit funky whenever I'm wearing this. After that full 24 hours, after the next day, it does go away, but there is just something about the scent that lingers, and it's definitely not pleasant. You guys know what I'm talking about if you're frequent self-tan wearers. So that is another one I would give like a 2.5 out of 5. All right, now let's talk about, once this is fully developed, what the color looks like. This does get really nice and dark. For all of these after clips, I did try to do them in the same exact spot to at least give a fair comparison. Unfortunately, the thing that I was not able to control, of course, is the weather and how much the sun was shining on those days. So there may be certain lighting setups where something looks a little bit darker or lighter than it actually is. And I feel like when I looked back at this clip, it looked lighter than it truly is in person. This does get really, really dark. So I would give this color a 5 out of 5. It's not something that looks overly orange on me. I mean, most self-tanners do have that warm toned undertone to them, that kind of orangey vibe, but it's not something where you would look at someone and be like, oh my gosh, did you get a horrible spray tan? It's just a really nice deep tan color. And then as far as evenness of color and any patchiness, I don't usually have an issue. Sometimes, what is that? Like from a blanket. Sometimes I have an issue just in this part of my arm with Loving Tan in particular, with it getting a little bit patchy and not applying or developing evenly. I think that's just from bending my arm like that, you know, as it's developing. But that's the one area where sometimes I will have an issue. Also, my hands, feet, ankles, areas like that that are pretty common to have streakiness and patchiness. I just have to be really careful to make sure that I'm fully blending those areas. So what I actually do is after I apply to my hands and feet and ankles and wrists as well, I will take just a large and expensive makeup brush and use that to blend all of those spots. With that, I don't have any issues with streaking or patchiness there. If I don't do that, then I typically do. So I will give this like a 4 out of 5 because usually I don't have major issues. Usually the color just looks really nice and even across the board. But because I have to take a couple extra steps to get there, it's not gonna get a full 5. All right, now let's talk about the fading process and how long this lasts. So Loving Tan, I would say lasts a full 6 days on me. And this one, again, it's relatively even as it fades, but the issue that I mainly have is typically in this arm area. It definitely starts to just kind of fade patchy and a little bit funky there. So I will give the fade a 4 out of 5 as well. All right, finally, let's talk about the ingredients here. So this is not one that causes me to have any irritation on the skin. I don't feel dry or itchy, but of course that doesn't mean that it's going to work for you necessarily. The ingredients in here that may pose an issue for you if you have sensitive skin are witch hazel, fragrance, and dyes. Almost all self-tanners have fragrance added, unfortunately, and if you're somebody that can't use fragrance on your body, I do have one that's going to be for you in this video, but unfortunately, Loving Tan is not it. Aside from that, there's not really anything in here that is majorly concerning to me. While I do like to avoid fragrance and skincare while I can, I'm a lot more lenient with it when it comes to the body. And at the end of the day, I would so much rather put self-tanner on my body that has fragrance in it than lay out in the sun for hours and hours to try to develop a tan. Those days are long gone for me. It's not happening anymore, and I can guarantee no dermatologist would recommend that you go lay out in the sun for hours instead of just using a self-tanner that has fragrance in it, unless you have a severe allergy to fragrance. I don't see a dermatologist choosing that over this. So those are the couple ingredients to look out for, but otherwise no issues there. So overall, Loving Tan is a great product. Is it worth $60? I don't think so. Sorry, I'm gonna say it. I don't understand. It's not perfect. And if you're gonna be $60 when others are $15, $20, you better be dang near perfect. So would I recommend it? Yes, if you're willing to spend that kind of money. Is it the very best one? I don't even think so. All right, next let's move on to the Ulta Beauty Collection Ultra Dark Express Tan Tinted Mousse. This one says it's a 1 hour express tan. but then on the label says that for an ultra dark tan, you want to leave it on for up to 3 hours. I forgot to say, for all of these, I typically leave them on for about 6 hours, 6 to 8, I would say, and then I rinse it off in the shower. If you guys are interested in a dedicated weekly self-tanning routine video, let me know. I can definitely do that for you. Okay, this one also has the same amount of product, right? This was 6.7 fluid ounces. This one is 6.76 fluid ounces for $12.99. So you guys see where I'm getting at with that price point. What? $12.99. Ease of application here, I would say, is very similar to Loving Tan. It might be a little bit patchier to apply, but I really don't have any major issues with it, so I would give that a 4.5. Does this fully dry down? Not 100% on me. I do feel a tiny bit of a stick. Again, it's nothing major, but it's not one that I feel like is completely dry, so I would give that a 4 out of 5. Is this transfer free? Definitely not. I feel like maybe even a little bit more so than Loving Tan. This just, I mean, it's a mess. I actually, a lot of the times, will just put a robe on after I use this, and when I take that robe off, it is completely stained. I've tried to sleep in this before. It looked like I just completely leaked all of my self-tanners onto my sheets. So I do not recommend sleeping in this unless you have black sheets and then wash them immediately after, but holy cow. So I would give this like a 2 out of 5 as far as the transfer rating goes. All right, let's talk about the smell for this one. So I would say it's really similar to Loving Tan. It does have a smell while it's developing. It's nothing that is intensely potent to where I can't stand having it on, but it's there. So I would give it a 4 out of 5. I'm being a little bit more lenient on all of these self-tanners for that specific category and how I rate it, because I have never had, I mean, there might actually be one in this video, but a self-tanner that has zero smell while it's developing is very, very difficult to come by because of the ingredients that are in it. So I give that one a 4 out of 5. And then as far as the self-tan BO, I actually don't have that with this. So 5 out of 5. Amazing. Color for this one. This is one of the deepest self-tanners that I own. The color gets so dark, which I just love in the summer months. It's definitely something that is a bit too much for the winter time, but in the summer it is a gorgeous deep tan. It might be a little bit orangier than the Loving Tan, but I mean, I'll have to see when I look back at these clips. It's hard for me to remember what every single one looked like at this point, but I still don't feel like it's something that is offensively orange that would be super noticeable, except for the hands. I mean, I would say pretty much all self-tanners, when they're on your hands, look orange. This area is, I mean, the skin is much drier, the color concentrates deeper there, so that's another thing I can talk about in a dedicated self-tanner application video, kind of how I get around that, but that's the only area that you have to be worried about, and then like knees and Achilles tendon area, but otherwise I love the color of this. It gets so dark. The color is also really nice and even, so I don't really have any issues with streaks here. I would give that a 5 out of 5. This lasts a full 6 days on me as well, so 5 out of 5 there. And then the fade is pretty even for me across the board, so I mean maybe like a 4 or a 5 out of 5. No major issues as far as fade goes. I mean, most self-tanners start to get a little bit splotchy as the color is fading, but I would say just compared to other self-tanners, it's about the same. The one issue that I personally have with this self-tanner is it definitely makes my skin feel a bit itchy, which is a huge bummer because everything else, aside from the transfer, which is very annoying, is amazing. Like just how dark it gets, how long it lasts, how even the color looks, the price point for $12.99, like it's insane. So the first time that I actually ever tried this, I slept in it overnight. Sheets were a mess and my skin was crawling, you guys. I had never experienced anything like that with the self-tanner, except for, okay, quick story time. When I was in college, my roommate had her own spray tan machine, which I feel like I should just invest in at this point because it was amazing. We would all give each other spray tans every week before going out. But one of those times, my skin turned purple, like from irritation. That's actually really concerning thinking about that. I turned like purple, my armpits kind of turned green. I definitely had hives. I was like 5,000 degrees. All of my roommates were looking at me like, do we need to take you to the hospital? So that's like the only time I've ever had something concerning happen with self-tanner, aside from the severe itch of this. So there's clearly something within this formulation that does not agree with my skin. I have an easier time with it when I only let it develop for about 6 hours versus maybe leaving it on for 9 to 10 hours. The itch is still there though, and it's something that subsides once I put lotion on, but I just feel like as time goes on, I need to consistently reapply lotion to make sure that I'm not getting itchy. So if you have super sensitive skin, this might be a huge problem for you and one that you want to avoid. And it's kind of interesting because I feel like this ingredient label is one of the more stripped back ones out of all of the self-tanners that I have. This does have, you know, quite a few dyes at the end of the label, just like the Loving Tan one. So I feel like it's not that because it's the same kind of dyes. Obviously, I don't know the exact percentages that are included in each, but I don't know, I feel like it wouldn't be that. The biggest thing is just that this has fragrance in it. So I think just the form of fragrance in this specific solution does not agree with my skin. It's something that I can still use, like I said, if I'm making sure to be careful with lotion, but now that I've tried other self-tanners that don't give me an itch, but also still do get a really nice color, this is just not one that I'm going to repurchase. It's almost gone. I honestly still have this from last summer because this was the only one I was using. I was putting up with the itch, but I'm done with that. My baby, my love, Tanologist. I've done, I think, 3 separate videos on Tanologist at this point. I have a review just on their self-tan water. I have a review on the self-tan drops because I had a wild experience with those drops. Holy cow, I'll link that video here and in the description box below. And then, like I said, I do have the video where I compare each of them and let you know which formulation is my favorite. For this video, I thought I would just use the Mousse. I really, really love this Mousse. And I mean, I think it's clear at this point, if you have watched all of those videos, that Tanologist is my jam. To clarify, I am not sponsored by Tanologist. I have no partnership with them. I did receive a very aggressive comment on one of my videos just saying it's clear that this is sponsored by Tanologist. It was not. It still is not. No part in this is in partnership with Tanologist. I purchased these with my own money every time. So, ease of application for Tanologist at first was tricky for me because there is no color guard in any of their products. And at first I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so difficult to apply. I won't be able to see where it's actually applying. I'm probably going to have a huge issue with streaks or spots that I missed. But once you get past that first time and become more confident with it, it is the easiest, most foolproof thing ever. I was shocked the first time I used it that it actually turned out as well as it did, because you just feel like you're gonna be missing spots when you don't have that color guard. But now that I have used a product like this without a color guard, I way, way, way prefer the no color guard, because this means I can go about my day, leave my apartment, and I don't need to stay indoors because I look like I have Cheeto dust all over my entire body. You know what I mean? So ease of application, I will give a 4, because if you're a newbie, it is definitely intimidating. But now for me, it's a 5. So if you're an experienced self-tan user, if you have used self-tanners before that don't have a color guard, it is so easy to apply. The mousse is so light and smooth. And even though you don't have color, you still can see on your skin where it's a little bit damp from the mousse. So that's just kind of how I go about applying it. This one dries almost completely fully. Their self-tan water fully dries on me. This one, I can feel the tiniest bit of a stick, so I would give it like a 4.5 out of 5. I'm trying to be really nitpicky on these ratings, but it's nothing that bugs me. It's something I can totally wear comfortably with no issue. This also does have a smell while it's developing. It's nothing major, but I would give that a 4 out of 5. But this one really doesn't have that 24-hour self-tan BO, at least on myself. So that is a huge win for me. I just hate that. I feel like I just feel so dirty when I have that initial self-tan smell. So I freaking love that there's no lasting, lingering smell for this. And I really love the way that the Tanologist color develops on me. I think it's just a really, really nice tan. It gets nice and dark for me, but the one downside is that I have found I have to use a bit more product than other self-tanners to get it to the level of darkness that I want. So I am wearing this now. When did I apply this? I think this is like day 3 or 4. So it stays nice and dark, but I did have to do like 2 full applications of it to get it this dark. So keep that in mind. But I think, you know, the fact that this is $16.99 and this is $60, I would way rather just do 2 applications of this and have to repurchase this a little bit more frequently because it still is going to be less expensive for me than this. So I give the color a 5 out of 5. It's not orange, it looks really nice. I have no issues with this formula streaking on me. I find that the color develops very nice and evenly, so I would give it a 5 on that. It lasts a full 6 days on me, just like the other 2. But the fade with this is definitely better than Loving Tan and Ulta. Those ones, like I said, can get a bit patchy. This does not at all. It really does fade nicely. So 5 out of 5 on that category as well. This one does have quite a few different fragrant plant extracts in it. Things like limonene, linalool, grapefruit extract, other citrus extracts. So definitely not one that's fragrance free. Might be an issue for you if you have sensitive skin, but I find that actually super interesting. And this also does just have parfum or fragrance added. This one has far more fragrant ingredients. Again, I don't know the amount of each that's in it than the Ulta Self Tanner, which pretty much just has fragrance. But the Ulta Self Tanner makes my skin itch like crazy, and this is super comfortable for me and I don't have any issues with it. So keep that in mind. Not one that's a problem for me, but does have quite a few different fragrant plant extracts. So all in all, I love, 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 love Tanologist, but a lot of you already knew that. All right, let's move on to B.Tan. This brand actually has quite a few different kinds of self-tanner. This one is called Not Just Your Weekend Lover, and it's a violet-based dark self-tan mousse. That says it's 1 hour, but I wore this for about 7 hours as well, same as all the rest. This one really intrigued me because I don't have any other self-tanners that claim to be violet-based, and you will see in the application clips, it is green. Like green eggs and ham. It's so green. I was shocked when I first used it. But this one has 6.7 fluid ounces and retails for $19.99. So aside from Loving Tan, this one is the priciest out of those other ones so far. Application of this is very easy. It has that dark color guard so you can see where you're blending out. So I would say it's just comparable to all of the rest of the tanners. But for whatever reason, this bottle was leaking quite a bit on me, and I'm hoping that I just got a fluke and that's not normally an issue with their bottles because it was pretty messy. So because of that, I'll probably like knock it a point for ease of, well, no, I'm not gonna do that. You know that was an issue for me, so just be careful of that. But as far as the actual ease of application with the mousse itself, very easy, no problems. This one does not dry fully at all. Oh my gosh, it's like on the bottom of this bottle. I feel like I just got one that's totally messed up. This does not fully dry down after you apply it. Unfortunately, I will give that like a 3.5 out of 5 because it had a noticeable stick, especially compared to some of these other self-tanners that did fully dry or just have a slight stick. I was like, okay, this just feels wet on the skin, and it felt wet pretty much the entire time. So, I mean, not like just got out of the shower wet, but you feel like you have something on your skin the whole time. And because of that, I'm sure you're able to guess that this is not at all transfer free either. So be very careful. I would probably not recommend sleeping in this one either. I did not sleep in it, but I'm sure it would get all over your sheets. So I would give that one like a 3 out of 5. This also did have a smell while developing, and I have a little grid here where I wrote down, you know, everything I thought about each of these categories. I wrote yes in all caps for this, and I didn't do that for any of the others. I don't remember exactly what it smelled like, but I do remember it had a very intense smell that was not super pleasant. And then this also did have that 24-hour self-tan BO. So application of this was just really not my favorite in general. Now that I've tried Loving Tan with no color guard, and I feel like I've been spoiled with that. I've seen the good side. This with such a dark color guard that makes your skin literally look green while it's developing, so you can't really leave and go anywhere. It feels wet, it transfers, and then it smells. It's like all of that just was not great. For this one, I feel like the color just didn't develop as dark as I wanted it to. I mean, for something that says it's a dark self-tan mousse, I think I was just expecting more color payoff. So that was a bummer, but I didn't really have any issues with it looking streaky. It lasted a full 6 days on me and it faded really well. So I'm sure if I added more product, I could get it nice and dark. So I would say once it was developed to the fade, there were no major concerns, but the application process. However, with all of that being said, the thing about this self-tanner, it's actually funny because on their site they say formulated with no nasties, and usually when I see that, I roll my eyes, to be honest, because that's hardly ever the case. And also nasties, like what does that really mean? That could mean something totally different from person to person. But this formula truly doesn't have anything in it that I found that is known to be a skin sensitizer or irritant. Does that mean it's not going to irritate your skin? No. But there were no ingredients in the list that are known issues. So no fragrance, no essential oils, no plant extracts that cause irritation. So I actually was very impressed with the ingredient label. And I would say out of all of the self-tanners that I have here, if you have sensitive skin, this is probably going to be the one that you want to try out. What I would recommend is trying one of their other formulations and not this violet-based one, because I don't feel like it's great. But like I said, they have a lot of others that seem promising and that I'm interested in trying out. I just didn't have the best experience with this, but the fact that it doesn't have fragrance in it is going to be a huge win for a lot of you. So it's a brand I would recommend, just maybe go for a different one. Okay, next let's move on to Soul by Jergens. This one has 5 fluid ounces and retails for $19.99 as well. So you're getting less product for the same amount as B.Tan, but more than Tanologist and Ulta. So that was a bit of a bummer, especially because it's from Jergens. I was expecting it to be more affordable. But this is their Sunless Tanning Water Mousse in Deep. This one is very easy to apply as well. There's no color guard, so while that may not be easy for you if you're a beginner with self-tanners, I thought it was super easy. And this one is similar to Tanologist. It dries down almost completely fully. I do feel a slight stick, so I would give that like a 4 out of 5. And then this one, because it has no color guard, is completely transfer free, which I love. Okay, smell for this one. It has a very fragrant scent to it. And it's the most noticeable scent I felt out of all of these. I just was like, that is so, I want to smell this. Ooh. I don't know how to describe this. It's not horrible, but it also doesn't smell super good. It's not the same kind of smell that you would think of when it comes to self-tanner. It's not that traditional self-tan smell. It's almost like a sharp, citrusy, floral scent. Okay, clearly I do know how to describe it. That's what I would say. Not in the most pleasant way when you're applying it. It's very apparent. I'm super sensitive to smells, so some of you may actually think this smells good, but you can definitely smell it while it's developing. It's not as potent as when you're applying it, so that's good while you're wearing it. It's not going to be a huge concern, but you can smell it while it's developing, and I did have that 24-hour self-tan stink with this one, unfortunately. The color on this one, I felt like at first I was fine with it, but looking back at the clips and comparing it to the rest, it definitely has an orange tint to it and just doesn't look like the most natural tan. So I would give the color like a 3.5 out of 5. Just when you compare it to some of these other ones, I feel like it definitely didn't hold up to those. It lasted a full 6 days on me and it faded evenly, so those can get a 5 out of 5. But the color was not my favorite. So this one for me, because it's pricier than some of the others and I don't love the color and it has that kind of strange smell, it's just not my favorite. It's not one that I'm going to repurchase. I mean, compared to Tanologist, which is so good for cheaper, I don't feel a need to repurchase. Ingredients for this one, of course, this has parfum fragrance in it, which I'm sure you could have guessed because it has such a strong scent. This also has alcohol denatured towards the top of the ingredient label. That's not an ingredient in itself that needs to be demonized, but it's something that can definitely be drying and irritating on the skin depending on the amount that's used. So because it's towards the top of the ingredient label, it's one of the more predominant ingredients in the formulation. So just keep that in mind. It might be something that feels drying on the skin. I personally didn't feel like my skin felt irritated or itchy, but just something worth mentioning. All right, second to last, we have the L'Oreal Sublime Bronze Self-Tanning Water Mousse. This one is 5 fluid ounces and retails for $11.99, and this is in the shade medium. When I purchased this, I didn't see any other shades available, and I checked on the site, and there was not a dark shade at the time. I don't know if they have one now or if it was just out of stock at the time, but I didn't have the option to purchase a dark shade, which I did with the rest of these. This one was so promising. I thought I had maybe found a new all-time favorite while I was applying this. Oh my gosh, okay, hit myself in the face. You can see there's no color guard. I thought it was so easy to apply, no issues with streaking or patching. It fully dried down like 100%. I would give that a full 5 out of 5. So even compared to Tanologist, which has that slight stick, 0 stick with this, 0 smell with this, really no smell while it was developing. No 24-hour self-tan BO, so like, oh my gosh, check, 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 5s across the board, until it came time to see how the color developed. I mean, it's the shade medium, so I guess I can't expect that to develop as deeply as these other ones, but since I didn't have the option to buy dark, I just was maybe hoping this would be a little bit darker. It just definitely was not dark enough for me. And then this one, out of all of them, I noticed lasted maybe 4 days, maybe 5, but closer to 4. So this one faded a lot faster on me than the rest. This one is not fragrance free. It does have a few plant extracts in it, so just keep that in mind. It didn't irritate my skin, but you never know. So unfortunately, this is not going to be one that I repurchase because it just did not get as dark on me as I wanted it to, and it didn't last as long as the others. Sad. All right, last but I was gonna say not least, but this deserves to be last. This is the St. Moriz Professional Tanning Mist in the shade Dark. It has 5 fluid ounces and retails for $12.99. I apologize, I did not really realize that this was going to be a mist like it is. I think I was thinking maybe it would be more of a self-tan water like Tanologist is and could be more comparable, but this is really a completely different kind of product than the rest of those, which were mousses. So it's a little bit unfair to directly compare, but I'm still going to include it because I have clips of it, I mean, if you're curious. So, this is a full-on mist, like hairspray, spray sunscreen, something like that. And the application of it for me was a disaster. Not so much because of the actual mist itself and the way that it applies to the skin. I would say it's pretty comparable to a self-tan water. But because there is a color guard in this and because it's a spray mist, it got everywhere. And also was definitely leaking a little bit. So the note I have on here is just packaging sucks. It really was not a good situation. I got product, little splotches of it all over my bathroom. So if you are going to use this, use it in the shower, please God, so that you can clean it off. That was just a mess. It was by far the worst application process out of all of these products. Again, it's not fair to directly compare because none of the rest of these are sprays, but the bottoms of my feet were completely stained, like such a dark brown color because it was all over my floor. So be so careful with this. This did fully dry down on me, so that aspect of it was great because it does have a color guard. Anything that doesn't dry down fully when it has a color guard is going to be something you have to be really careful with. It's not going to be 100% transfer free in the sense that it won't get on your sheets when you sleep, but I didn't have issues with it getting onto my blankets or my couch or clothes. because it dried down. So that's good. It definitely did have a smell while developing, but I didn't notice a 24-hour stink afterwards, so that's another good bonus. And the color of this one was okay. It didn't get as dark as I wanted it to, and I do feel like it's one of the ones that looked a little bit more orange on me in person than some of the others. That's the other thing. I feel like these videos are just kind of hard to capture the true color compared to in person. So I just wasn't obsessed with the color, and it definitely wasn't as dark as some of my others. While the color did develop on me evenly, and I would say last about 6 days as well, the fading process was pretty iffy with this one. I felt like it started to get really splotchy around my neck area. So the fade's not great. The color's not great. The application is really brutal. This one is also not fragrance free, and I would say compared to the other self tanners, it had the most potentially concerning ingredients in the fact that they may be sensitizing and irritating to the skin. The first ingredient in this, well, I guess technically the second, the first ingredient's water, is denatured alcohol. And again, that's not an ingredient that needs to be demonized, but when it's the second ingredient within a product like this that you are leaving on your body for hours, it definitely could be something that's irritating and feels dry or itchy on the skin. So this is not one that I would recommend at all. Even though there were some benefits with it, I just honestly didn't enjoy any aspect of that application process. It was such a mess. So I would stay away from that one, but that's not speaking to that entire brand. I haven't tried any of their mousses, and I actually would be interested in trying them out. I did look at some of the ingredients on their mousses, and they aren't the same as this. When you have a product like that that needs to actually spray out, it's going to have different ingredients than something like a mousse would. So if you're interested in that brand, I would say just stay away from the mist and test out the mousses instead. All right, you guys. I feel like I was just talking so fast. That is everything. Those are all the self-tanners that I've tried. I feel like we have some clear winners and losers here. I would say the two that I would just avoid for sure, that I think are not worth the money, are the St. Moriz Mist and this Soul Tan by Jergens. One that I also personally don't find worth the money, but that you may still like, is this L'Oreal Tan. If you want something that doesn't get to a dark color, but just has a little bit of color to it, this could be a really good option for you. So I'm not gonna say it's a 100% no. Well, it's a no for me. I know that everyone has different preferences. The Ulta Self Tan is another one that I can't say is a complete no. While I'm not going to repurchase it because it did make my skin feel itchy, I feel like it had one of the best color payoffs out of all of these tanners. So if you don't have sensitive skin, if you don't mind a little bit of transfer, and you don't mind having to just kind of sit around your apartment or house while self-tanner develops, you might really, really love this one, and it's so affordable. So that's gonna be a maybe. And then the top three winners for me are going to be Tanologist in first place. This is still my favorite. I think it's so easy to apply. I love the way that the color develops. The price is right and doesn't irritate my skin at all. Loving Tan, I'm going to still include in my top three favorites because the color is so amazing, but I think the price point's a bit absurd, so maybe that should even be a maybe. You know, do what you will with that. And then B.Tan, while I was not obsessed with this specific color, I think this is such a promising brand that I want to look into more. I honestly didn't think any of these self-tanners were going to be totally fragrance-free and free from sensitizing ingredients, and this is. So that is amazing. Go you, B.Tan. I really want to try out some of their other products. So that is everything. I really freaking hope this was helpful for you guys because this is the most time-consuming video I have ever filmed. So please give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. My goodness, 9 weeks. That's actually insane to think about. Anyway, please give it a thumbs up if you did enjoy it, and don't forget to subscribe and click on that notification bell because I upload 3 to 5 days a week for you guys. You're definitely gonna have to let me know in the comments. Let's chat. Have you tried any of these? Did you have similar experiences to mine? What's your all-time favorite self-tanner? I'm sure a lot of you have a favorite that I didn't include in here, so let me know in the comments below. We will chat there. If there's anything else you would like to see from me next on this channel, leave that request in the comments as well. Otherwise, my next video will be up in a few days, so until then, I hope you have a great few days.